Thanks for joining us for the Mazza Inner Circle Wine Club Winemaker Selection installment here for the Maturation installment. I'm Mazza. I'm here with
Blaine Ballard.
and we're sitting here today in the cavern at South Shore Wine Company, and we've got a great variety of wines to share today. Blaine, why don't you take us through at least the few that we're going to be tasting today?
We pulled the sparkling Chardonnay, which is made in traditional method champenois, a really nice rosé of Chambourcin from our Bare Bones series, and the Cream Sherry from our dessert wine selections. All really different wines, but all pretty good representations of what they are.
Great. So starting off with, we've got the sparkling Chardonnay. And so the sparkling Chardonnay is here under the brand for South Shore Wine Company. It's actually one of 6 sparklings that we have in the portfolio. So South Shore has become, over the past number of years, a sparkling house, if you will, for us. So it includes some traditional methods, so method champenois or the champagne method of bottle fermentation for that secondary fermentation for the sparkling Chardonnay that we have. We also do sparkling Riesling, rosé of Pinot Noir. We do 2 pet nats, or petulant natural sparklings, a Riesling and a Chambourcin rosé. And then we have a little bit more of a, I guess I would say, Prosecco style fizzy white called Perfect Bubbly. So this is, probably what I would say is one of the most traditional that we would expect. Chardonnay being one of the 3 traditional varieties in Champagne region of France. Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Chardonnay are the 3 approved varieties. You can't call it champagne unless it's made in the Champagne region of France, but it is made in that method. So that secondary ferment in bottle provides that natural carbonation. It's still, for us, a very manual hand method. We're only making a few thousand bottles of these traditional method sparklings each year, but they're great wines, whether for celebration or just a Tuesday. So with that traditional method, you get a really nice fine mousse, fine bubble structure. We don't do long sur-lees aging, so with that secondary ferment, you have some yeast lees in there. We leave that wine and those bottles age on those lees for a little while, but not much more than about a year. We don't do an extended period of time because what we still want to do is we still want to drive a crisp, fruit-driven style, and that's just stylistically what we think really works well with these wines. The fruit from this actually, for 2 of the sparklings, or for 2 of the traditional methods, the Chardonnay and the Riesling, both come off of Moorhead farms, and they've been growing vinifera varieties for over half a century, and really the pioneers in this region. So they're a great partner for doing these wines.
Yeah, I think this is really reminiscent of a true champagne. Being all Chardonnay, it's maybe a little bit more sophisticated than the pet nat method, which I don't know which I like better. You get a lot more of those yeasty, rustic flavors in the pet nat, where this is really refined, nice fine bubbles, and you really get the true character of the fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you do drink traditional method or champagne, you fan of Blanc de Blanc, sparkling Chardonnay is really going to be your analog to that. In terms of what we're offering here.
Yeah, definitely dry, fruity, really nice.
So a great palate opener. Moving on, the next wine we've got, as Blaine mentioned, is a rosé of Chambourcin. So we found that Chambourcin, at least I guess in our opinion, is a fantastic candidate for rosé winemaking. It's got great fruit, beautiful hues in terms of color when you make it into a rosé, but it also retains this wonderful acidity when grown here in Lake Erie that really, to me, is I think so integral to a dry rosé that is really a trend only in the U.S. that's really gained some traction only in the past 5 or 8 years. Sadly, before that, I think people thought of White Zinfandel as rosé, which unfortunately it's not. And it has its place in the wine world, but really exciting to see dry rosé take off. I'm not trendy enough to know that apparently it's Instagrammable, but I just like to drink it. So you get, just really bright, light fruit characters, letting that acidity, mouth-watering, nature of this wine just really drive everything Rosés are a tricky wine to make in a lot of ways. We make this in, there's a couple different ways to make rosés. We make this in what you would refer to as the French or the provincial style, Provence. So we actually are taking and pressing a fraction of this, and it is the first free run and light pressing fraction that we're driving to the rosé program. The harder press fraction that might have a little bit more phenolic character, a little bit more color, those are diverted off, and we don't include that because this is really want to create that light, delicate, acid-driven wine here in this instance.
Yeah, definitely light and refreshing, but you do get some of that red fruit characteristic coming through, which is what I really love about rosés made in that Saunier method. So it's really nice to get a little bit of that flavor, but still really bright and refreshing.
Yeah. So this is I think this has to be one of my favorites. It's a wonderful sipper any time of the year, quite honestly. And then moving on to dessert. So fortified wine, we have a couple that we make. This is under the Mazza Vineyards brand. So it's a cream sherry. Cream sherry being a sweeter style. So there's variants of sherry, traditionally inspired from the Jerez region in Spain. Cream is I guess what I would say is a kind of an American variant. So it ends up being a sweeter style. We take this fruit, it's fortified, which basically means we add grape spirit or grape brandy that we create actually in our own sister distillery back to that wine and barrel age it. And for us, we actually used whiskey barrels in this instance. And that provides some extra complexity and character. And we let this wine age for a number of years. The barrel, has some evaporation. We don't top it like we normally would, kind of treat it like a spirit where you don't top it, you let it oxidize, and it just has this brick brownish hue that starts to take on, and these just really rich, developed oxidative characters that are stylistically appropriate and absolutely desired for the style of wine. Quite a bit of residual sweetness, so this in itself, can be dessert, but plenty of things you can do with it as well.
Great as a side with a cup of coffee or on ice, but I love those oxidative qualities. It just gives you a little bit of, or a lot of depth to the whole thing, and it's cool to see a sherry style wine made with grapes from here rather than the traditional grapes in that region. So it's like I said, great for dessert or with dessert or on its own
or as dessert. Well, thanks for joining us. I hope you learned a little bit, and we look forward to you joining us for our next installment for the Inner Circle Wine Club. Cheers.
I finally learned why it's called cream sherry. So in the late 1800s, there was somebody in.
I actually don't know this, which is.
Well, I just realized that while I was wondering.
This is a bonus reel.
So
I'm just going to
they
keep
were.
taking.
There was a sherry tasting in England, and a lady was tasting the sherry that was known as Bristol's milk. Bristol was the port that they brought sherry into, and she tasted it. It was fine, and then she tasted a sweetened sherry, and she said, "Well, if that stuff is milk, then this is the cream," and that's where the term cream sherry came from. No dairy, obviously added, but it's a pretty cool story.
I guess it's actually an Anglican
Yeah.
origin story.
Right.
Excellent.